Efren, how are you?
Hello there, my family. I'm doing pretty good.
Okay, I'm glad hopefully I'm still part of your family at the end of this interview. So
Rip me apart. Yeah.
so
I can tell reporters all the even with who was it? I think it was the Washington Tribune or San
yeah.
Francisco Chronicles, and they were talking to me about Crank, and I said, "Yeah, be as brutally honest as possible because that's going to make me think about the work that we do and go, all right." Because then we get to explore together, and in the end, it's
Yes.
not just the artist, but the artist, the reporter, and the audience, and be able to go, wait, were we able to tap into the best way possible into telling a story? Did we
Well,
recognize, did we see it? What's the learning lesson and was it valued? So, yeah.
okay. Well, I'm that that
Dang,
is that is
it got deep right away, didn't it?
got very deep. Yeah. I wish I was that deep. But anyways, I'm with Efren Ramirez with Seven Cemeteries, and you know what? Let's
Yeah.
get deep with this. I enjoyed the film. I was really surprised at how much humor there is in the film. Was it one of the reasons why you wanted to be part of this project ensemble because of especially your character has a great sense of humor as well.
Oh, thank you. I think it's being able to work with Gulager. I like John Gulager's work, and I enjoyed Joel's writing. So there was a moment when I was able to sit with both of them and really discuss and flush out my character and go, what's his history, and what was he, and ask questions like, what was he like before he died? So it helped me define his behavior in such a way where it really worked, and we had and allowed me to have a great dichotomy with Danny Trejo and my dreams and ambitions along with my then wife, the witch.
Right. Well, I really love the inner life you're talking about. There's a sequence without giving up too much away, a combat sequence where Miguel at first is a little bit hesitant. And I thought that was really good because it was a very unpredictable moment. Where does that come from? That initial hesitation and then he enters that fray. Is it because of that from your own perspective, his own relationship and what he has to lose because he has that, the witch as sort of like you said, his companion?
It's funny you say that because right away I think about my creating choices and trusting those choices when you're in the moment. There's a film that Jack Nicholson did called Five Easy Pieces, where in that film, at the very end of the moment, he's offered the opportunity to change. And what we recognize, spoiler alert, is that he doesn't.
It's
And
heartbreaking.
and David Fincher is really good at finding that with his characters sometimes in his own films. And I thought, what a wondrous feeling to be able to find a scene, a moment in a film where your character is given the opportunity to either become something beyond himself or not. So, and even though I'm dead, he makes the choice to leap beyond, and it may not resonate so much with my character, but it may, in hopes, resonate to the audience and allow them to see that, you know what, in that little change, they recognize the bravery that was influenced by Danny Trejo's character Bravo. So we'll see.
So this could be a zombie film. This could be an ode to the Magnificent Seven, which itself, since you're a cinephile, is an ode to Seven Samurai.
Correct.
And there's Gulager, and he's a huge cinephile as well, and he comes from a great lineage. But this movie has so many elements to it. Were you surprised at how much heart it has as well? It has a surprising level of heart and emotion behind all of that fun stuff we get to see on a superficial level.
Um, well, it after reading the script, I thought, who are going to play the other characters? And when I met Vincent and Lou Temple, Vincent Ward and Lou Temple, those two guys, they really brought these characters to life. And I thought, okay, this is going to become something more because it's a character driven story. So, but from them to even Richard and Emma, who play the luchadors, right? I mean, Richard's in the Bear and Emma's a Broadway actress. So to be able to watch them work, objectively and from a distance, and to say, "Hey, I'm a part of this cast," it was pretty cool to recognize. And I had to remember and remind myself that I have to bring my A game as well and go, okay, let me do my own homework and trust that, especially with my idiosyncratic ways on Miguel's behavior. So,
Yeah.
because he has such a strong point of view on everything, which is the snarkiness, the sarcasm, and finding the irony in life and death.
Yeah, Miguel has a really well. Miguel, like to look at him as alive because he has a very interesting way at dealing with confrontation. Again, without giving too much away, there's a big confrontation scene which Miguel and you as the actor, it's played a completely different way. And as you said, it's idiosyncratic. Do you personally have an idiosyncratic way as far as being an actor in your process and how you've developed it, your A game over the years, or has it always been the same from the get-go?
No, I think yeah. In one of my schools, I studied with one of my teachers, Gloria Gifford. And we had a movie night. Like many schools had movie nights, and we would talk about the different directors, writers, and producers, and how these films came to be. And in the study of Marlon Brando talks about finding comedy in dramas and finding dramas in comedies. And I thought it's the same way with the characters you play, that in torture, you got to find the only way to breathe is by laughing at it. So, so uh, uh, and even in comedy it comes from pain. You could be a gesture and be silly about everything, but then when the true comedy and the honest comedy comes out of not knowing many things, or thinking of one way of life and everything just flips on its head, and now you're in the upside down world. So I maybe perhaps I myself am like that. um I do float to worlds like, that's created by David Fincher or Paul Thomas Anderson or Tim Burton for that matter, because they question the validity of life's values, and the integrity of a character, and the laissez-faire ideology of how people portray um, uh, um, themselves in the real world. People want to give themselves off as one way when deep inside they're another. So and maybe perhaps I'm just that way myself. When I'm dead, I'll let you know when I get an answer.
Efren, you're very analytical, and I really appreciate this. I gotta ask you this question. You mentioned movie night, and there are
Yeah.
so many great, even classic comedies that, as the time goes by, different generations forget them. And Napoleon Dynamite is one of those movies that I think it's on the echelon where people never forget about it. And can you contextualize that feeling on being part of that? And can you analyze why that film is so high up there as far as in movie history to so many people? Just now that you have a lot of years, 20 plus years behind it, how do you contextualize that pretty much fact?
Uh, Personally, myself, I is something in acting. You learn something called archetypes, where you kind of emulate your character into something else or someone else. Johnny Depp does the same exact thing. And I found myself finding Pedro to be quite like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin. And so I put those two characters and my ex-girlfriend's dog together to create this curiosity of life, this innocence, and this search for hope. So if I could find some honesty with any character I play, I will run with that. And in that case, for Napoleon Dynamite, you could see how it works, because the relationship between Napoleon and Pedro is quite like the relationship between John Voight's character and Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy, where John Voight doesn't know. When he enters from Texas, he enters New York, he enters a new world, and in that new world that he doesn't know where to fit in, he befriends a character like Racho Rizzo, and in that friendship, they help each other's dreams come true. It is the same exact thing with Napoleon and Pedro, where they sacrifice each other and their dreams to help each other out. And I thought that was so endearing. And I may be wrong, but I think the reason why Napoleon Dynamite holds so strong is because, first of all, there are no special effects. There are no green screens. All we had was each other. And in the story itself, as different as the characters are, they have something in common, that they're just trying to figure life out. And the wondrous and the wonderful thing about the story is that in the third and final act is that something great happens with every single character. Even the uncle. Uncle Rico gets that girl at the very end. Grandma gets the llama. Pedro becomes president. Napoleon gets the girl. Kid gets married. And you're like, wow, in the end, you may not know and have all the answers of life, but something good happens to you if you keep working together and just trying to figure and enjoy life together and trying to figure it out. So,
You mentioned honesty in your characters and in the story. That's like really looking deep into what you do. Did you learn that from acting school, or a lifelong passion for being a cinephile, or just pretty much at the root of things, just living your life and trying to make sense out of it? You
there's
know,
a few teachers I had, from Laura Henry to Lisa Robertson, Australian teachers, and Lisa Henry. Laura Henry is from New York, and Lisa Robertson is from Australia, and they're very hard. They're very hard on me. And so was Diane Venora, who taught me Shakespeare.
she's a great actor. She's so great.
Yeah, yeah, and they remind you, especially because even in the schools, you would watch movies and you would go. The question, even with Gloria Gifford, she asks, where is the love? You got to find the love. You got to find the dream of life. You got to be truthful and live in the moment. You gotta be able to repeat honestly, and express your own point of view, and allow that the other person is the captain of your ship, which was, as an actor, to me, if I could live presently, wholeheartedly, through the traumatic history of a character, then I've done my job as an actor, which is very hard to do, especially on camera.
Yeah, Efren, final question. It's a sort of a 2.5-parter. From your body of work, can you give our listeners a movie that you've done that is underrated, and what makes it a special part of your movie resume? And the second part of that, can you also name one of your all-time favorite movies and what makes that movie special for you? So those, and thank you for your time, Efren.
Okay, I'll go reverse backwards. One of my favorite films it's very difficult because they're both PTA films. It's either The Master or There Will Be Blood. Because it's the battle a character has, and the struggles of having to figure what the meaning of life through the actions and the professions they choose to do, in relation with others and the world itself. And a project I did. It was called Monsters of God, and it took place during the Civil War, and I wouldn't have been able to do it if I was working on a play called In a Forest Dark and Deep, with a professor of mine, and it was emotionally challenging and distraught, and I felt lost, and I realized that the only way to play a character who's lost is to allow myself to be lost and to accept that to be okay. So and to trust that I could do that on stage, and I don't think people are going to be able to see that character I played in Monsters of God, who was half Mexican and half Comanche. So in that show, I spoke 3 different languages, and the cast that I was working with were dynamic, And for me, it opened my eyes to say, "Hey, I'm a part of this, and I could possibly do it too." Yeah. So,
Efren, I really love Cemeteries. Really enjoy your work. Thank you so much for the masterclass of an interview. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You take care, brother. Am I still part of the family? Am I okay?
You are part of the family, always.
Okay,
Always.
you take care. All right. Thank you.